So here's something new. Well, not really new, it was made quite a while ago, but new in the sense that you haven't seen it on the channel before. I got it about a month or so ago. That was before the accident, and I did have one opportunity to shoot it, but I figured it's probably going to be a while before I can get back to the range, so I might as well make the video now. So what you see here is a Remington New Model percussion revolver. It's an original, so this was made sometime between 1858 and 1873. I'm not sure exactly when. It doesn't say which year on the revolver itself. Let me just focus on that. There we go. That should be good. You may be wondering, why the heck does it say black powder only, 44 caliber? Yeah, that's not an original barrel. The original barrel is this one right here. You can see here why it has been replaced with a reproduction barrel. There's the damage right there. So with a rupture like that, it's no longer safe to shoot, of course. And on here it just says patent 1858. Doesn't say when this particular one was made. Really nice condition. You can remove the cylinder quickly and easily with this. All you need is pull the pin out, put it on half cock, and out it comes. And this is also in really good condition. The nipples are all looking really crisp. Dark, of course, from the black powder, but nothing major there. And as you know, this channel is not about history per se. It's really more about the practical aspects of it. So it's really more about how do you use a certain thing, and how does it perform, and how does it feel, and what does it look like, and all of that. So that's really what this video is going to be about. If you want to know more about the history of these, then you'll have to look elsewhere. But if you don't know how a black powder percussion revolver functions, I'll explain that briefly. So you can see this doesn't have fully open chambers like on a modern firearm. A modern one, you have that loading gate on the side that you flip open and then you put in the cartridges. It's not the case here. So the way this works is like a muzzle loader, except other muzzle loaders, I should say, except that you don't pour the powder into the barrel, but into the individual chambers. And nowadays at the range, we typically use these here, powder flasks. And the way those work is you put your finger on there, then you push down on this button here, and that will dispense a certain amount of powder. You can see it right there in the spout. In fact, I'll focus in a little closer, and I'll just pour that in my hand for now. So you see these here are 30 grains of black powder, which is the right amount for this caliber. This is a 44 caliber. Let's put that back in there, hopefully without spilling too much. There we go. They had powder flasks back then too. This here is an antique. So same principle. Just to focus, there we go. Same principle. In this case, you just push this lever here to the side, and same idea. From what I've read, soldiers didn't use these. This was really more for hunting, from what I understand. They used mainly paper cartridges. So those are, pre-measured powder charges with the ball wrapped inside paper. So they would shove the entire thing in there, which is pretty quick, really. The way you do it with these, you just dispense that, pour it in, and then depending on how you prefer, you can either proceed to load that chamber. So we just put the lead ball on there, rotate it until it's underneath the rammer, and you would just push that down, which of course I'm not going to do now, and then proceed to the next chamber. You could also pour powder into each chamber, and then in the next step put on the balls. There's really not much risk of a double charge. You would see that very clearly. If you try to pour 60 grains of powder in here, you would definitely see the powder filling up to the top or even spilling. So not much of a risk there. These balls here are 0.454 inches in diameter. There can be some variation with the old ones, so it's good to experiment a little bit with what fits best. Ideally, you would shave off a ring of lead as you push them in, so that way you ensure that it's a very tight fit, so there are no gases escaping. And when you've filled them all up, you would grab one of these percussion caps. It's just this copper cap here with the chemical inside. I forget what it's called, but if you strike that, that's basically the green looking mixture there. That's what ignites, creates a miniature explosion, and that's what sets off the powder charge inside the chamber, and then that pushes out the lead ball. So as I said, back then soldiers carried the paper cartridges, and they would just insert the entire thing with the powder and ball just on there, ram it down, and then they just have to cap them. And it's can be reasonably quick, not as quick as cartridge guns, of course, but there is one difference that makes the unloading at least a little quicker. Or rather to say, it eliminates the unloading altogether, because everything that's in there burns. And ideally, as you cock the hammer, the remains of the cap will just rotate and it will fall out off to the side. Sometimes it can get stuck, like if parts of the spent primer stick to the nipple, and as you fire off more shots, eventually it'll move down there. And if there are still some pieces on there, it could get stuck. I'll give you a look at the sights here. So it does have a notch. The Colts didn't have that. They had an exposed cylinder, not the closed frame here. So they actually had the notch on the hammer itself. So this is a pretty decent side picture. And the thing is pretty heavy. And one thing that definitely surprised me is how much resistance the hammer has. Like with modern single action revolvers, you can cock it pretty easily. This one here is definitely a little harder. I mean, no big deal, but what I did notice is as the powder builds up, this gets quite difficult to cock. And you get the black powder crud in there and all binds up and gets stuck between the moving parts. So that's what happened on the first time at the range. Apparently I didn't use enough lube. I have pre-lubed patches that go on top of the powder under the ball, but they are somewhat on the dry side, and that just didn't really do enough. So I had some issues with that. Now that I know better, I'll just use more lube. That's really the idea behind the lube. It's often said that you do that to prevent the chain fire, but from what I understand, that's not the case. A chain fire, if anything, happens in the back, not in the front, so that doesn't really do anything. The purpose of the lube is just to keep the black powder fouling soft, so that you don't have this hard crud building up in the barrel and also in the moving parts. So if you have enough lube, then it'll just melt and just kind of run down the central pin and make everything smoother to operate. So yeah, that's what happened the first time. You'll see that. You see me struggle with that. Next time that should be a lot smoother. So yeah, really interesting piece of history to think that a soldier back then actually carried this. That's pretty cool. And who knows what it has seen. But, pretty interesting to handle that. Quite some heft. It's certainly heavier than it might look. But yeah, enough with the talking. Let's just get right to the action, shall we?